We acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Welcome to This Song Is Yours, a podcast where we dive deep into the world of songwriting and music. I'm your host, Simon Fink. Welcome back. And today we have a very special guest on the podcast for you. Our guest today is the incredibly talented singer-songwriter and multi-instrumentalist, Sarah Kinsley. Originally a self-appointed orchestra kid with classical music training from a young age, Sarah's passion for contemporary music led her to start writing and composing her own songs. She began sharing her music with the world in 2020, and after releasing several EPs over the past few years, Sarah is now gearing up to release her highly anticipated debut album, Escaper, this Friday. An absolutely stunning indie pop record with grand arrangements and beautiful instrumentation, Escaper showcases Sarah's growth as an artist and features the brilliant production work of John Congleton, who some might know from his collaborations with Sharon Van Etten and St. Vincent. Now, in today's conversation, we chat with Sarah about the experience of stepping out of her home studio to create these expansive songs alongside John Congleton. We also discuss how Sarah knew that the songs on Escaper would form her debut album and dive into one of my favourite tracks on the record, titled My Name Is Dancing. Additionally, we reminisce about catching up at South by Southwest Sydney last year and talk about her experience touring with Mitski after our meeting. Now, we want to extend a huge thank you to Rhiannon for her help with today's episode. Remember, Escaper is out tomorrow, and all the details of where you can purchase it will be in today's show notes. Don't forget to visit our website, subscribe to the podcast, and follow us across all of our socials. Once again, details are in the show notes. Now, let's get into it. Here is our conversation with Sarah Kinsley.
This one I want, this one I dare, but I can't ignore the thoughts of me there, the woman inside, making my way through the night and through the day, right to the end.
Please welcome back to This Song Is Yours, Sarah Kinsley. Sarah, hello. How's it going?
I'm good. I'm really good. It's a very gloomy day in New York. How are you?
Doing okay, thank you. It's also a bit gloomy here in Australia at the moment. I think it's that weird crossover between seasons for yourself. How is New York at this time of year? I think we're in the start of September. Is that fall?
Yes. I always forget that the seasons are flipped. Yeah, it is fall. I think I'm ready for fall. I'm very sad to see summer go. I am like a summer baby, so I always feel like I change a lot, and my year revolution happens in the summer, so I always look forward to it.
I can very much appreciate that. I think, and not to provide you with a horrible segue, so I'm so sorry that I'm doing this. I find that fall or autumn is always a really good time for new music, though, because you can kind of stay inside a little bit more. You get to kind of live in with a record. And it's a very exciting time because there's a brand new record out from yourself. Escaper is out this week. Again, apologies for the segue, but congratulations on this beautiful record that you're releasing.
No, thank you. I thought it was a perfect segue. The transition was very seamless. Yeah, I'm very excited about this album.
Of course, and as you should be. I know that there's previously been a few EPs before this, but I think this is technically, the full debut, and I'm sure that you've heard it in a lot of various kind of ways while doing press for it. Was there a conscious moment that you remember, this is going to be the album, or this is going to be the full-length record?
I feel like I was writing music sort of during the release of my last EP, Ascension, which was in June of last year, and I had some songs here and there. It was still very scattered, but I knew very deep down that my next body of work would be an album, even without knowing exactly which songs were going to make up the album. I feel like I've been feeling for a while with the EPs are wonderful because they're kind of a wonderful chance to tell a very brief narrative. I think that 5 songs has always felt like very much home for me in terms of the nature of telling a story and whatnot. But I was really itching to tell a longer story and to create a narrative and write about something that was full, and just to give people more also. As a people pleaser, I was just like, yeah, I want to give a full 40 minutes to an hour. But I feel like it really hit me that it was like, this was the album, and it was Escaper. Probably after I wrote the song, the title track Escaper itself, or the song Starling off of the album, because it was one of the last ones that I wrote. And I felt like it was almost quite complete at that point.
100%. This album is sonically stunning, I have to say. Very emotive, very dramatic, and I mean that in the most complimentary way possible.
Thank you.
Of course, I think that the previous EPs, that they were quite large in sound and in scope, but this seems to be that even kind of elevated again. For this record, I believe it was the first time you still producing, but outside of your own studio, kind of going into like a much bigger studio.
Yeah.
How was that?
Oh my God, it was so incredible. Yeah, it was my first time working outside of my home, basically, on any body of work, and also working with somebody else, John Congleton, who was just so awesome and such a dream, and yeah, a really big moment for me. It was weird to not be in like the comfort of my home and also to be in LA every day. I know it's like super normal for musicians to do, but for me it was super abnormal. And it was really surprising every day. But it was also a dream come true because, I mean, one, to work with John, and who's like, has one of the greatest discographies ever, but also, and as such a creative and kind soul, but also just because his studio has things that I've only ever dreamed of, like instruments that I've never even heard of, and let alone touched and played and gotten to use on the record. And I feel like I'm so happy to hear you say that it felt more elevated from the other EPs, because that was the whole goal of stepping outside of the world that I had, you know, created before, and working with somebody else. I wanted the grandeur and the largeness of this album to be really felt and heard. And I think that was only possible through working with John as well. And also, yeah, just playing with what his studio also had to offer.
100%. I know that I believe, if I've done my research correctly, you played a lot of the instruments on this record. It was not just simply a songwriting and singing and possibly pianos, that multi-instrumentalist duties on this record as well.
Yeah.
I know, when was it? Last year, we had the very good fortune of catching up with you at South by Southwest in Sydney. And I think we talked about the contact pads. I do have to ask, did they make an appearance at all on the record?
It's crazy because they didn't, and I was intending to use them. And I brought this contact mic that I like upgraded. I have a new version of it now, from when we last spoke. I don't have to like tape them onto my neck anymore. I can just turn a switch on and like sing into it. But no, we didn't end up using it on the record at all. We used so many other things though. I mean, I got to play these like singing glass bowls. I got to play this on Martineau, this beautiful instrument that I have literally been obsessed with for years, since I was in college. And I brought my violin with me. Like, there was a lot of this, I don't know, this really strange and wonderful amalgamation of like past things that I've used before on records, and then totally new sounds that I've only tried to, you know, badly replicate on other EPs. And the contact mic didn't make it. I do plan to bring it on tour though. Like, I'm super excited about incorporating it into the live show, but not on the record, no.
Look, I'm just glad to hear that it's still in the mix in some capacity. So very glad to hear that. As you mentioned, John Congleton, incredible discography. I know he's worked with bands like St. Vincent, Death Cab for Cutie, The Polyphonic Spree. There was one song on the record that I kind of wanted to talk about, and I hope you don't mind. I'm going to kind of ask about my favorite track on the record. It was My Name is Dancing, which gave
cool.
almost like a very Polyphonic Spree-esque kind of vibe to it in a way. I think the way that the arrangement was done. I was wondering whether you might indulge me a little bit and talk about how that song came about or what inspired that song both sonically and lyrically.
Yeah, that song is, I feel like I have had so much trouble within my songwriting. I feel like I focus a lot on the sort of like pain. Like for me, I feel like songwriting has always come out of pain in some capacity, or specifically when I feel any sort of trauma or difficult experience, my songwriting has come out of that, at least historically, of who I was when I was becoming a songwriter and a musician. And it's very rare for me to like really just indulge in love and beauty, and I feel like there has to be a contradiction, there has to be a complexity. And for the first time, especially on this record, and with the themes of the record, I just wanted to be in the feeling of love, and that intention and that phrase kept coming back over and over again, that I was like, I want to write about this. I just want to write about what love feels like sometimes. And that first verse of My Name is Dancing is all about, like, I feel like when you're in love, like, you just genuinely feel like you're the first person to ever do it, and you're the first people to ever experience this thing. It's like, how is it possible that we know what this feels like? How could we ever be so lucky that being alive also means that being in love is possible? And that first verse of My Name is Dancing is lyrically for me all about the like abandon that you sort of feel of like, I actually don't care if anything happens with my life as long as this feeling is still here. I don't care if I become nothing, and I genuinely felt that way and still feel that way within the process of like this relationship I've been in, and I wanted to write about that. And the sonic landscape of that song, I really wanted to reflect the feeling. It's so lighthearted. My favorite thing about that song was like, I got to play this little OP1 synth for that part in the chorus that's like, and then it comes back down. And finding the sound for that took a little bit, and I just like sort of played it by hand, and we were like sitting in the studio, and it was really silly. And I remember I was doing it live and we were kind of improvising, and I remember playing it, and I think John just thought I was going to go up the entire time and then bringing it back down. And I remember hearing him laugh. And that's like such a sweet memory for me in making the record. But that moment to me, like, I was so glad that we achieved that, because sometimes it feels that way where you just laugh. Like, love makes you like actually feel ridiculous sometimes. Platonic romantic love, like, it's like, how is this possible? And that song is just me trying to like put a time capsule into that feeling.
I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
At the start of that, you kind of mentioned that like the reason, I guess, originally, like what inspired your songwriting. Can you tell us, I guess, what first got you into songwriting? When was it that you first had the thought to kind of like put pen to paper and I guess express yourself in that kind of way?
I feel like it's funny because I grew up as a classical musician. I always felt like I could express myself through instrumental melody in some way. So melody was always like the first thing that I gravitated towards when I was younger. But I feel like songwriting, when I was like 12 or 13, I was getting to the point where I was just so obsessed with pop music. And I was also starting to read poetry, and I was also starting to like read novels really way more seriously. And I feel like the combination of all of these things happening and me being curious led to this very perfect environment for me to want to like write and not just write instrumental music, which I had been doing, but to put down lyrics and to pick up a pen. And I also love to journal. Like I've been writing, maybe when I was younger, it was a diary and now it's a journal, but I've written in some form of a book like that for my entire life. So it felt very natural. But the early music I wrote was, it's just trash. It's horrible. And hopefully, never sees the light of day. But it's, but also like everybody begins there, and I think what I was writing about initially had to do with feeling, it had to do way more with how I'm perceived or who I was as like a really young teen and feeling super invisible, like all of these very intense melodramatic things that have, either reflected a very small part of my life or a specific part of how I thought at the time. But that's kind of where I began.
Look, we've discussed with many songwriters on this podcast that it's very rare that someone has been confident and has loved their first few entries. And so 100% normal for the feeling that it might be. I love that you referred to it as trash. I'm sure it wasn't trash, but still I love the the phrasing of that. There, the last time that we did catch up in Sydney, you were just about to go out on tour with Mitski, I think maybe a week and a half later. I have to ask how that went, because I know that was a bit of a big deal for yourself, I think, when we discussed it. Yeah, I can't remember
I'm trying to remember what I said to you at the time, or if I was like really nervous. I was super nervous, and actually I had this really funny moment before going to play for her. My guitarist and I flew in together from New York to Nashville, and the person that we took an Uber or something to go to the show, and he took a very specific interest in our gear, which usually happens when you're like young women at an airport anywhere with like 10 things of guitars and drums and synths. Like it invites a lot of questioning, which I understand, and there's a lot of intrigue. But he took an immediate sort of curiosity and was like, "Where are you playing?" We were like, "Oh, we're playing at the Ryman," which is a huge deal in Nashville. He was like, "Do I know you? Like, who are you?" And was just super mean. And when my guitarist was sort of doing most of the talking and saying, "Oh, we're here to open for Mitski," and he goes, "Oh, right. And it was just the whole day was really strange and had this funny energy. When we got there, our gear wasn't working. We had just come from like another gig, and the TSA had like ruined a bunch of our instruments. And so the whole show was so stressful. And so there's this air of like bizarreness kind of all around. And in the middle of all of that, I got to meet Mitski, and I was so flabbergasted. I was so nervous. I just couldn't believe it was happening for the most part. And I just fully started to like see myself talking to her. And it was just so strange, but she was so nice. And I actually enjoyed like their sound check almost like more than the show, because it was just so intimate, and I got to like really experience a lot of it and kind of get to hear the music with nobody else there, which was incredible. But yeah, the show was just amazing. And it is by far one of the greatest experiences of my like career so far.
I absolutely, well, not so much the taxi driver and the comments or whatever, but I love the fact that you got to have almost like your own personal, intimate Mitski concert, which I imagine, very, very special experience. I know that you're going on tour across the US, I think Europe, the UK. Bit of an obvious question I do have to ask. Will we maybe see you back here in Australia in support of Escaper to play some shows?
I would really love to. I had the best time when I was there for South by Southwest, and I really wished we could have done some kind of a proper show, and I would be super surprised if we never do. So I hope we do. Right now, I don't know if there are plans to, but I'm hoping so. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I would love to come back to Sydney and other places as well.
Well, look, again, fingers crossed, putting it out into the universe to hopefully try and manifest. Lastly, Sarah, we usually ask, I guess, what they're listening to. Is there anything at the moment that's on high rotation for yourself?
Ooh, I would say right now, I've been really diving back into this album, Milk and Kisses by the Cocteau Twins, and it's absolutely fantastic. I'm trying to think. This musician who's coming to open for me on my tour in the US, her name is Have, and I think she just released either an EP or an album, and I love it. I think it's great. So also that.
Look, absolutely love both of those recommendations. We'll definitely be checking them out. Sarah, thank you very much for coming back onto the podcast. I appreciate it. Congratulations on Escaper. The album is coming out later this week. We'll make sure people can buy it in the show notes. But thank you so much again for your time.
Yeah, thank you. No, thank you for the really kind questions. I really enjoyed it.